Peace, family. This is Lions Den with another news and commentary. You know, out of all the stories that I've done, I've never seen anything so ridiculous, so disrespectful, so outrageous in my life. It says a mother upset after son kicked out of class over the Pledge of Allegiance. And just like my favorite YouTuber, Lovely T said, this happened in ratchet ass Florida. Um, and this article comes from Spectrum News, Bay News 9. It's happening in Lakeland, Florida. It says an 11-year-old Polk County student refused to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and after explaining his reasons, he was kicked out of class and eventually arrested for being disruptive and disobeying commands to calm down and leave the classroom. You know, when I read this article, I was furious because number one, he was only an 11-year-old black boy. I mean, it's bad enough that the teacher kicked him out of her class. Secondly, he was arrested. Now, why would you arrest an 11-year-old boy? And then third, he was suspended for 3 days because of this incident. So I'm going to go ahead and read this. It says, the incident happened on February 4th at Lawton Chile's Middle Academy. The student refused to stand for pledge. Arrest report said he called school leaders racist. And I agree with this. I agree with him, and I'm explaining to him why I agree with him later on. He says that his mother, Dakira Talbot, wants charges dropped. So I'm gonna tell you before I read this article, I agree with this 11-year-old black boy, and I'm gonna tell you why. The substitute teacher is racist. And once we read this article together, you'll understand why I agree with what he says. So I'm going to go ahead and read this. He said he was also suspended for 3 days. They said the incident happened at Lawton Chile's Middle Academy in Lakeland on February the 4th. The sixth grader was arrested and taken to juvenile detention center, charged with disrupting a school function and resisting arrest without violence. Unbelievable. It says the student's mother, Dakira Talbot, said her son is in gifted classes and has been bullied at the school in the past. She says, I'm upset, I'm angry, I'm hurt. More so for my son. My son has never been through anything like this. I feel like this should have been handled differently. If any disciplinary action should have been taken, it should have been with the school. He shouldn't have been arrested. The incident started when a substitute teacher, I'm going to let you know that this is a substitute teacher we're dealing with, asked the student to stand up for the pledge. The student reportedly told the substitute teacher the flag was racist and the national anthem was offensive to black people. In a statement to the district, the substitute teacher reported telling the 11-year-old boy, and get this, and this is why I want you guys to listen to this. I want you guys to listen very carefully of what this substitute teacher telling this 11-year-old boy. She says, and I quote, why, if it was so bad here, he did not go to another place to live. In other words, if it's so bad, then why not going to another place, or why move to another place? That right there was racist. Because why would you tell an 11-year-old kid that? And this is why I said that she's a substitute teacher, but you can tell she's racist. In other words, she said, well, if it was so bad here, then move to another place. That's what she said. In other words, just move to another place if you don't like it here. And that right there is racist. So she said, he didn't say they brought me here. In other words, I was moving here. They brought me to this school. And continue to say, she says, and this is why I knew that she is racist. Then she replied by saying, well, you can always go back. Go back to where? Because I came from Cuba, and the day I feel I'm not welcome here anymore, I will find another place to live. So she told this 11-year-old child that if it's so bad here, then find somewhere else to live. And when the 11-year-old child, and you know what, the 11-year-old child shouldn't even say nothing to the teacher. But he was nice and said, well, they brought me here, you know. And in other words, they brought me here. I like it. And I mean, and so, and then why would you tell an 11-year-old child, well, you can always go back because I came here from Cuba. Ain't nobody, they don't care where you come from. And that's disrespectful. You told an 11-year-old child, in other words, and it's just like saying that if you don't like it here, go back to Africa. That's what I mean. She didn't say it, but in her mind, that's what she's trying to say. But then she's telling this to an 11-year-old child. So I'm gonna continue on. This is ridiculous. She said, then I had to call the office because I did not want to continue dealing with him. So she can't handle an intelligence of an 11-year-old child. So her stupidity called the office because she don't want to deal with him anymore because he has a right not to stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance. So, and that's why I'm no wonder that his mother was upset. And she said, the Kira Tablet said the teacher was wrong. And I'm continuing to say she was wrong. She was way out of place. Talbot said if she felt like there was an issue with my son not standing for the flag, she should have resolved that in a way, different manner than she did, Talbot said. And that's the truth. Why would you let an 11-year-old child go through all of this? They should have handled it in a different way. I mean, it's bad enough you kick the child out of, you kick the child out of your class. I mean, they should have sent him to an office and talked to and then let the parents know what's going on. No, she didn't do that in this case. She kicked the child out. Her son was arrested and got suspended for 3 days because he refused to stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance. So I'm going to continue to say this. According to the arrest affidavit, the student was arrested, get this, guys, by the school resource officer. And see, the thing is that the school resource officer shouldn't even charge him. That's what I'm saying. They shouldn't even put this 11-year-old child in handcuffs. And guess what? He said because he refused to follow multiple commands, repeatedly called school leaders racist, and was disruptive. But the teacher was racist. He was telling the truth. And then they said he threatened to get the school resource officer and the principal fired and to beat the teacher. Listen to this, and to beat the teacher. So then the students who was with his mother when she was interviewed told Spectrum Bay News 9 he didn't threaten to beat the teacher. But see how they try to cover each other? Being on code, well, he threatened the school resource officer and threatened the principal getting fired and try to beat the teacher up. He didn't do anything to the teacher. All the 11-year-old child was that he refused to stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance because, which is the truth, that the Star Spangled Banner and the American flag was racist. He's not lying. But the substitute teacher did not like it because she's racist herself. So she called the resource officer and put the 11-year-old black boy in handcuffs. This is ridiculous. I'm continuing reading. He said, Talbot is working with the Poor and Minority Justice Association to get some help with the matter. I want the charges dropped, and I want the school to be held accountable for what happened because it shouldn't have been handled the way it was handled, Talbot says. A spokeswoman with the school district said students aren't required. I'm going to read this again. The spokeswoman with the school district said students aren't required to participate in the Pledge of Allegiance, but the substitute teacher wasn't aware of this. So the school district should have the school district should tell all the substitute teachers their rules. So they've been held accountable as well, because if you guys know that neither the students don't have to participate in the national anthem or in the Pledge of Allegiance, then go ahead and tell the substitute teachers your rules. They didn't do that in this case. So I'm gonna go ahead and continue. They said the spokeswoman said the substitute teacher will no longer be able to work at any other district schools, and the district is still looking to the matter. So, ladies and gentlemen, and that's the end of the article. And I'm gonna go ahead and play this and play this video. But at the end of the day, the 11-year-old child shouldn't even be arrested at all, because why would you? I mean, it's bad enough you kicked this 11-year-old black son out of a classroom because he has a right not to stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance or have a right not to participate in the Pledge of Allegiance. And then you call the police on the 11-year-old child. And now he got suspended for 3 days because of this incident. See, people, this is why I said, and then on top of that, and I'm glad that the school board did something to the substitute teacher because, she is racist in this situation. And the 11-year-old child wasn't lying about that. She was racist, saying in other words, if you don't like it here, you can move to another place. Like, he doesn't have a right to be there. So I'm gonna go ahead and play this news clip, and I hope that reaction. And remember, reaction will not allow you guys to see the video, but you will hear the audio of the situation. So I'm gonna go ahead and let you listen to it, and then I'm gonna finish the rest of my commentary.
A sixth grader at Lawton Child's Middle Academy was arrested and taken to a juvenile detention center, charged with disrupting a school function and resisting arrest without violence. It's a decision that's not sitting well with the student's mother, Takira Talbot, who says her son is in gifted classes and has been bullied at the school before.
I'm upset, I'm angry, I'm hurt, more so for my son. My son never been through anything like this, and I feel like they should have handled this differently.
The February 4th incident started when a substitute teacher asked the 11-year-old boy to stand up for the pledge. He reportedly told the substitute teacher the flag was racist and the national anthem was offensive to black people. In a statement to the district, the substitute teacher reported telling the 11-year-old boy why, if it was so bad here, he did not go to another place to live. She said he then said, "They brought me here." And she said she told him, "Well, you can always go back," because she was from Cuba, and the day she felt unwelcome here, she'd find somewhere else to live.
She was wrong. She was way out of place.
The substitute teacher then wrote she called the office because she, quote, didn't want to continue dealing with him. According to the arrest affidavit, the student was arrested because he refused to follow multiple commands, repeatedly called school leaders racist, and was disruptive. They said he threatened to get the school resource officer and principal fired and to beat the teacher. An accusation, he says, is just not true.
I want the charges dropped, and I want the school to be held accountable and the officer for what happened, because it shouldn't have been handled the way that it was handled.
Takira Talbot says she and her son will now head to court on February 19th to fight these two misdemeanor charges. Reporting in Lakeland, I'm Stephanie Clay-Tor, Spectrum Bay News 9.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that was the story. First of all, I'm glad at least the school board did something to the substitute teacher and got her fired. And she said she would no longer, work in any other school district ever. But the officer who arrested him, the 11-year-old child, also need to be fired because, again, there's no way in hell that he shouldn't even be in handcuffs at all. And because of him, he basically has a criminal record over stuff like this. And guess what? You saw what you saw the end of the story said that the school board that kids don't have to participate in the Pledge of Allegiance. And the substitute teacher wasn't aware of that. Well, if the substitute teacher wasn't aware of it, then guess what? The substitute teachers that y'all hired need to know every rules in the school, or know every rules in this school. And y'all didn't tell them that. So y'all just as more responsible as the substitute teacher. And the police officer who, like I told you before, the police officer who arrested this 11-year-old boy needs to be fired. Because that's also wrong for what they did. So I'm glad that the mother said that the charge needed to be dropped in this case because this is so unnecessary. All because like I said, Colin Kaepernick basically. Like I said before, I respect Colin Kaepernick, and you know what? This is why I said that they can't handle the truth of our history. And so with the substitute teacher, what she said to this 11-year-old child, that was racist by itself. And I'm glad that the school board did something. But at the same time, the school board needs to be held accountable for not allowing substitute teachers their rules. Tell them the rules of of their school, like I said, students don't have to participate in the Pledge of Allegiance if they don't want to. They should have let them know that. But like I told you before, they are just as responsible as the substitute teacher was. So at the end of the day, like I told you before, I'm glad that the substitute teachers is no longer working there, is no longer working in any school districts ever. But the police officers need to be fired for arresting the 11-year-old child, and the school board need to be held accountable for not allowing the substitute teachers their rule book, because they just go in there and just teach or whatever without even let them know their rules. So they, like I told you before, they're just as responsible as the substitute teacher and as that police officer was. So leave a comment, tell what you think about this. Share this video, subscribe my YouTube channel, subscribe my reaction channel, and subscribe my Black Junction channel for all the news and commentary. With that being said, this is Lions Den signing off. Deuces.